They built 96 houses on my land, not by accident, on purpose. I'd inherited 47 acres in Colorado from my grandfather. Paid off and pristine. I drove up for the first time in 3 years and found a whole subdivision where my forest used to be. Paved roads, street lights, families moving furniture into houses they'd paid $485,000 for. The HOA president, a woman who'd never done honest labor but wore a Rolex like a uniform, told me to my face I was a deadbeat squatter trying to scam hardworking people. She said her lawyer had declared the land abandoned, so adverse possession made it legally theirs. She'd already taken $16 million in pre-sales. Here's what I did. Absolutely nothing. I let them finish construction. Watched them landscape, paint, install pools. Then I walked into federal court with my grandfather's original 1971 deed. What would you do if someone built a neighborhood on your property? Drop your state below. Let's see where my land rights family is watching from. My name's Dakota Flint. Yeah, like the stone. 47 years old, structural engineer, divorced. I drive a 2008 Silverado that burns a quart of oil every month. Nothing special about me except one thing. My grandfather left me 47 acres of Colorado forest worth roughly $4.2 million. William Flint bought that land in 1971 for $8,200 cash. Depression-era men. He kept receipts in leather ledgers that smelled like pipe tobacco and WD-40. When he died in 2019, he left me the property with one note tucked inside the deed. Don't let anyone take what's yours. I didn't visit for 3 years. Divorced, 2 kids in college, 70-hour work weeks. Still, I paid property taxes every April, $6,400 a year. Never late, always online. I had the email receipts. In August 2022, I finally drove up to scatter Grandpa's ashes. I turned off Highway 36 onto the old fire road and my stomach dropped. The pine forest was gone. In its place, 96 Mediterranean stucco houses with fake balconies and HOA-mandated beige paint. A carved stone entrance read Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore luxury community. I checked my GPS 4 times. Same coordinates. This was my land. At the gatehouse, a security guard stopped me. Residents only. I held up my phone with a photo of the deed. He smirked. Sure, buddy. And I'm Elon Musk. Turn around. Before I could argue, a white Range Rover pulled up. Cassandra Whitmore stepped out, mid-50s, Botoxed into a permanent surprised look, wearing white linen that probably cost more than my mortgage. She had the air of someone who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. Problem, Ray? She asked the guard without looking at me. This gentleman claims he owns the development. Cassandra finally looked at me, scanned my work boots, my jacket, my calloused hands, and mentally filed me under poor. How charming, she said. Sweetie, if you're looking for construction work, most crews are full, but I can take your number. I'm not looking for work. I'm the legal owner. My grandfather, William Flint. She pulled out her phone and scrolled with manicured nails. Our title company ran a forensic search. This land was abandoned for over 3 years, so under Colorado adverse possession statute, it's ours. I interrupted. Her smile went sharp. That's adorable. You know just enough to be dangerous. She handed me a business card, Brian Keir, our attorney. He'll explain why your claim is what's the legal term? Frivolous. How many houses are sold? I asked. All 96. Pre-construction sales totaled $16 million. Families move in by Thanksgiving, she said as if it were a threat. This is a legitimate development, properly permitted through Boulder County. If you keep trespassing, I'll call Sheriff Mitchell personally. We're major contributors to his equipment fund. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She photographed my license plate. Just in case you decide to come back and vandalize anything, she said. We have excellent security footage, she leaned in. People like you don't win against people like us. The diesel smell of an excavator mixed with fresh concrete. A nail gun popped in the distance like a countdown. I drove home shaking. That night I spread Grandpa's documents across the kitchen table. The 1971 deed, 47 years of tax receipts, survey maps. Cassandra had threatened me, photographed my truck, and implied I was a criminal. She'd also handed me everything I needed to bury her. Monday morning I called Brian Keir. His receptionist had that professionally pleasant voice people use right before bad news. Mr. Keir is in depositions all week. Can I take a message? Dakota Flint about Ridgeline Heights, I said. Pause. Oh yes, Mr. Keir anticipated your call. He's authorized me to offer a nuisance settlement of $15,000 if you'll sign a quitclaim deed by Friday. $15,000 for $4 million in land. I'd heard of quitclaim deeds from my divorce. It's how my ex got the timeshare neither of us wanted. Basically, you sign away all rights without any promise those rights even exist. My divorce lawyer told me, never sign one unless you're sure you're walking away from nothing. Tell Mr. Keir I'll see him in court, I said, and hung up before she could respond. I needed a real lawyer, not the guy who'd handled my divorce for $2,200. I needed someone who made other lawyers check their malpractice insurance. My buddy Marcus, a civil engineer in Cheyenne, gave me one name, Lydia Chen. She'd beat a railroad company in a Wyoming adverse possession case so badly they offered her a job just to make her stop. Her consultation fee was $500. I paid it with a credit card and prayed. Lydia's office smelled like old leather and lemon furniture polish, the kind of smell that costs money to maintain. She was about 60, gray hair in a tight bun, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She listened without interrupting, taking handwritten notes so neat they looked like a font. When I finished, she set down her pen. Show me your tax receipts. I pulled out a folder thick enough to hurt someone. Email confirmations, bank statements, county records, every April payment since 2019, plus copies going back to Grandpa's first payment in 1971. She flipped through them, and I watched her mouth twitch into what might have been a smile under better circumstances. Colorado adverse possession requires 18 years of open, continuous hostile possession, and the squatter must pay taxes the entire time. If you've been paying taxes, the squatter's claim is stillborn. You could get an injunction to stop construction, she said, closing the folder. But here's what I'd do instead, and you're going to think I've lost my mind. Let them finish building. I stared at her. What if you stop construction now, I asked. Cassandra's company declares bankruptcy. Your land gets tied up in a 3-year litigation circus with 96 families who bought in good faith suing everyone. Banks, title companies, insurers. It becomes legal whack-a-mole. She leaned forward. But if you let them finish, then file for declaratory judgment. You own 96 completed houses. Cassandra's company has committed textbook fraud, selling property they don't own. They'll be desperate to settle because the alternative is criminal exposure. My hands were shaking. What if they somehow win, I asked. They won't. But even in some parallel universe where they did, you've lost nothing. Your land's already occupied. The difference is whether you fight one corrupt developer or 96 traumatized families. It was cold, strategic, brutal, and it made perfect sense. How much? I asked. 40,000 in legal fees, maybe 50. But when we win, and we will, the court can award damages for trespass, unjust enrichment, fraud, and attorney's fees. You'll own the houses outright, sell them, rent them, or negotiate a settlement worth millions. I had 12,000 in savings. My Silverado needed a transmission. My daughter's tuition was due in January. I'll figure it out, I heard myself say. One last warning from Lydia. Don't contact Cassandra. Don't post on Facebook. Tell only your kids and maybe one trusted friend. In property litigation, surprise is worth more than gold. I hired her that day and signed a retainer that made my stomach hurt. September bled into October. I drove past Ridgeline Heights twice a week, parked on the public road, and filmed everything. Framers swarmed like ants. The air smelled of sawdust and diesel. Plumbers hauled coils of PEX. Electricians snaked wire through walls. Every visit I took time-stamped photos. Cassandra spotted me in her 3rd week and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind me. Deputy Torres, probably in his 20s, with the uneasy posture of someone caught between a duty and a donor. Sir, I need to see your license. I handed it over. I'm on a public road, I said. He ran my plates, came back looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mrs. Whitmore says you've been harassing her, following her, taking pictures, he said. I'm documenting construction on property I own. Check Boulder County records. Parcel APN 5593248. Owner, Dakota Flint. Torres shifted. If there's a property dispute, that's civil court. But she's filed a formal complaint. If she calls again saying you're threatening her, I'll have to take action. Understand? Translation. She donates to the sheriff's re-election fund. He didn't understand, but he left. I stayed and kept taking photos. By November, the first families had moved in. U-Hauls blocking cul-de-sacs, kids on scooters, the smell of pizza delivery mixing with fresh paint. I watched a couple carry a crib into house number 43. Another family planted a maple tree in their yard. And I felt sick because these weren't villains. They were families who'd saved for years, believing they were finally living the American dream. But Cassandra was about to learn that stealing costs far more than money. The week of Thanksgiving, I received a certified letter from her. The post office clerk, Deb, who'd known my grandfather, wrinkled her nose when she saw the return address. Whitmore Development, LLC. That's the lady building those mansions on Old Mill Road, right? She asked. My sister tried to buy one. They wanted $485,000 for 1,800 square feet. Highway robbery. I opened the envelope in my truck. It was 3 pages of dense legal threats signed by her attorney, Brian Keir. The summary? Stop trespassing or face a harassment lawsuit. Attached was a photo of my Silverado, parked legally on the public road. My license plate was circled in red Sharpie with a note, document everything. I drove straight to Lydia's office. She read the letter, then burst out laughing. Not the polite kind, but the genuine, deep laugh of someone who just got handed a golden opportunity. They're documenting their own fraud, she said, wiping her eyes. Every letter, every photo, every message is proof they knew there was a dispute and kept building anyway. This is perfect. It doesn't feel perfect, I said. It feels like I'm being stalked. You are, she replied. But here's what you're going to do, nothing. Let them waste money on legal threats. Let them create evidence. We'll file in January, right after the holidays when no one's paying attention. She pulled out a yellow legal pad. Meanwhile, I need everything you can find on Cassandra Whitmore. Property records, business filings, tax liens, anything public. I want to know who's financing this operation. For the next 2 weeks, I turned into an amateur detective. Being an engineer helped. I knew how to read plats, survey maps, and permit filings. Boulder County's online records showed Whitmore Development LLC was registered in Delaware. A red flag. Delaware corporations are the favorite hiding place for people who don't want to be found. Cassandra was listed as the sole managing member, but the financing came from Ridgeline Capital Group, a Denver investment firm. I dug deeper. Ridgeline Capital was owned by 3 partners, and one of them was Cassandra's husband, Preston Whitmore, a developer who'd already been sued twice for construction defects and once for defrauding investors in a failed resort project. All cases quietly settled, all records sealed. So this wasn't just Cassandra's scheme, it was a family business. Then I found the real smoking gun. The county permits listed the land as formerly tax delinquent, acquired through an adverse possession, claim filed in March 2022, but here's the thing about adverse possession. You can't just claim it. You have to prove it in court, get a judgment, then record that judgment before you can sell anything. They skipped that step completely. They filed the claim, then started selling lots as if it were already approved. That's not a misunderstanding. That's calculated, documented fraud. I sent everything to Lydia in an encrypted email. By now I'd learned people like the Whitmores know how to make lives miserable. She called me an hour later. Dakota, this is even better than I expected, she said. Preston has a pattern. If we can prove he knew about your ownership and kept going anyway, this isn't just civil trespass, it's criminal fraud. How do we prove that? I asked. Let me handle that, she said. You just keep your head down. But staying quiet got harder when Cassandra escalated. On December 3rd, I got a call from Boulder County Code Enforcement. The man on the line, Rick Paulson, sounded exhausted, the way people do after 50 calls in one day. Mr. Flint, we received a report you're operating an illegal dumping site on parcel 5593408. What? I don't even live there. The complaint says there's construction debris, old vehicles, maybe hazardous waste. I'm required to inspect. If confirmed, fines start at $500 a day. I drove there that afternoon with my phone recording. The land was spotless except for the 96 houses Cassandra had illegally built. Rick met me at the entrance, clipboard in hand. About 50, sunburned, wearing a county vest. He walked the perimeter, checked behind houses, took photos. Finally, he came back shaking his head. There's nothing here. Someone filed a false report. Who filed it? I asked. He glanced at his notes. Anonymous tip. But it came through Mrs. Whitmore's office, listed as a concerned citizen complaint. So she's trying to get me fined for violations that don't exist, on land she's occupying illegally. Rick looked at me for a long moment. Off the record, I've inspected 6 Whitmore projects. Every single one had complaints filed against neighbors right before permit approval. It's a pattern. He handed me his card. If you need a witness statement, call me. I drove home with that card in my pocket and anger burning in my chest. Cassandra wasn't just stealing my land, she was trying to bury me under red tape while she finished construction. But what she didn't know, what no one knew except Lydia, was that every move she made was digging her own grave. By Christmas, 84 houses were occupied. Families hung lights, kids built snowmen, and my court date was set for January 12th. Then, on January 4th, 8 days before court, I got a text from my daughter Emma at 11 p.m. "Dad, did you get arrested? Someone posted that you're harassing families. It's all over Facebook." My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook, which I hadn't touched since my divorce, and found it instantly. A post pinned to the Boulder County Community Watch page, written by Cassandra herself. Alert. Local man Dakota Flint has been stalking families in our Ridgeline Heights community, taking photos of children and making residents feel unsafe. He falsely claims to own the neighborhood despite clear legal title. The sheriff's office is aware. Please report sightings. Protect your families. The comments were a nightmare, people calling me a predator, saying I belonged on a registry. Someone even posted a photo of my Silverado with the caption, "This is his truck. Stay safe." My hands shook so badly I could barely type. I called Lydia. She answered on the first ring. "I saw it," she said. "Don't respond. Don't comment. Don't defend yourself." "She's calling me a pedophile, Lydia. My daughter's crying. My son thinks I'm going to jail." "I know. It's defamation, and we're adding it to the lawsuit. But if you respond, it looks like guilt. Let me handle this." Desperate people lash out. She knows we filed, and her attorney's seen the evidence. This is a smear campaign, nothing more. "It's working," I said quietly. "People from high school are messaging me asking what's going on." "Good. Screenshot everything, every share, every comment, every message. It's all proof of malice." That night, I documented the post's spread. By midnight, it had 847 shares. Someone even created a hashtag, Stop Dakota Flint. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my boss called me in. "Martin's a good man. Ex-Navy, runs the engineering firm I'd worked at for 14 years. He closed the door. Dakota, a potential client, found that Facebook post. They're a school district concerned about optics. They asked if you'd be on the project. I told them no. You're on paid leave for 2 weeks. If this clears up, you're back. If not, he didn't finish. I took the envelope. Understood. Walking to my truck, I passed Jenny from accounting. She'd always been kind, brought cookies at Christmas, asked about my kids. She saw me coming and crossed the parking lot to avoid me. That's when I finally understood what Cassandra was doing. She wasn't just attacking my claim. She was destroying my life, my reputation, my job, my place in the community. I sat in my truck and called Lydia again. "They're ruining me," I said. "I just got suspended. People won't even look at me." "I'm filing an emergency restraining order against Cassandra," she said firmly. "Defamation, emotional distress, interference with business. The hearing's Monday. But Dakota, you need to understand. It gets worse before it gets better. If you want to walk away, I can negotiate a settlement. You'd get something, maybe $500,000. You could start over." I thought of Grandpa's note. "Don't let anyone take what's yours." "No," I said. "We finish this. Then buckle up," she warned. "Because they're going to hit harder." She was right. On January 7th, someone spray-painted one word across my garage door. Pervert. I filed a police report. The responding officer wasn't Torres, an older man named Patterson, who went through the motions with the enthusiasm of someone filling out DMV paperwork. "Any idea who did this?" he asked. I told him to check the Facebook post that was going around. He wrote something down and said, "Probably someone who believed it." He promised to increase patrols in my area. That night I slept with a baseball bat by the bed. On January 9th, 3 days before court, my daughter Emma called crying. Someone had sent her the Facebook post with a message. "Your dad's a creep and everyone knows it." I drove to her apartment in Fort Collins and found her on the couch with her roommate, both looking at me like I might be radioactive. "Dad, just tell me the truth. Are you stalking people?" she asked. I sat down and explained everything. The land, Cassandra, the lawsuit, the houses. I showed her Grandpa's deed, the tax receipts, Lydia's filings. I watched her face move from fear to fury. So she's lying about everything, she said. Then we need to fight back. Lydia said, we wait for court. Emma shook her head. Dad, you've been playing defense your whole life. Divorce, work, everything. Just once hit first, I didn't answer. But her words stayed with me. On January 11th, the night before court, I got one final message from an unknown number. Drop the lawsuit or everyone finds out what you really are. I forwarded it to Lydia. Her reply was instant. Perfect. Bring your phone to court tomorrow. We're going to bury them. The Boulder County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and recycled air. I met Lydia outside courtroom 3C at 8:45 a.m. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my truck and carried a leather briefcase that looked like it could stop bullets. You ready? She asked. I wasn't. My hands were sweating. I'd worn my only suit, the one from my daughter's high school graduation 3 years ago, and it felt tight in the shoulders. Do we have enough? I asked. We have a nuclear bomb. Trust me, she said. She checked her watch. Cassandra's attorney had filed a motion to dismiss at 4:57 p.m. the day before. Classic delay tactic. Judge Ramirez hates that. We walked into the courtroom. Cassandra sat at the defendant's table with Brian Keir and Preston Whitmore, her husband, whom I'd only seen in property records. Preston looked like a man used to settling lawsuits, sleek gray hair, a suit that screamed privilege. They whispered and looked relaxed. Cassandra saw me and actually smiled like she'd already won. Judge Angela Ramirez entered, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and zero patience. Be seated. She read the case number, Flint versus Whitmore Development LLC and associated parties. She turned to Keir. Counselor, I received your motion to dismiss at 5:01 p.m. yesterday. Explain why you think it's appropriate. Keir stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff's claim is defective on its face. Whitmore Development holds clear title via adverse possession. Mr. Flint abandoned the property for over 3 years. Did he pay property taxes? Judge Ramirez interrupted. Well, yes, Keir stammered, but then adverse possession fails under Colorado statute. His confidence started to crack. Ms. Chen? The judge asked. Lydia stood, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped. Your Honor, we're not here to debate adverse possession. That claim is frivolous. We're here because the defendants knowingly committed fraud. Lydia opened her briefcase. I'd like to submit Exhibit A, an internal email from Preston Whitmore to Cassandra Whitmore dated February 18, 2022. She handed copies to the judge and Keir. I craned my neck to read. Keir's face went pale. Judge Ramirez read the email and raised an eyebrow. Counselor Keir, did you know about this email? Your Honor, I've never seen that document, Keir replied. It was submitted in discovery last week. Perhaps it got lost in our office. What does it say? I whispered. Lydia slid a copy to me. My heart pounded as I read. From Preston Whitmore, Ridgeline Capital, subject Old Mill Road property risk assessment. Cassie spoke with our title attorney. The Flint parcel is not abandoned. Owner William Flint's grandson has paid property taxes continuously since 2019. Adverse possession claim won't hold up. However, if we move fast, file the AP claim, get permits, start selling lots before anyone notices, we can create enough chaos that Flint either settles cheap or gets buried in litigation costs. Worst case, file bankruptcy and let title insurance clean up. Done this before. Aspen Project 2019, risk level medium. Reward 16M gross. I read it 3 times. They'd known from the start. They'd known they were stealing my land. Your Honor, Lydia continued, this email proves the defendants engaged in intentional fraud. They knew Mr. Flint owned the property. They knew their adverse possession claim was baseless. They proceeded anyway because they calculated people couldn't afford to fight a multi-million-dollar battle. Judge Ramirez looked at Preston and Cassandra. Preston began to stand, but Keir gripped his arm. Your Honor, we need to consult with our clients. That sounded like a yes. The judge closed the folder. Motion to dismiss is denied. This case proceeds to trial on an expedited schedule. In the meantime, I am issuing a temporary restraining order. Whitmore Development will cease all sales, marketing, and transfers related to Ridgeline Heights pending resolution. Mrs. Whitmore, if I see one more Facebook post, one more anonymous tip to code enforcement, or one more threat directed at Mr. Flint, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Cassandra's confident face went ashen. Yes, Your Honor, she whispered. Walking out of the courthouse, Lydia told me that email, I got it from a whistleblower, one of Preston's former partners from the Aspen deal. He's been waiting 5 years for revenge. How did you find him? I asked. She smiled. I'm very good at my job. For the first time in 4 months, I breathed. That night, I bought a bottle of whiskey I couldn't afford and sat on the back porch watching snowfall. My phone buzzed every 5 minutes. Emma, Tyler, Marcus, even my ex-wife Jennifer sending a cautious, "Heard you had a good day." But the message that mattered came from Lydia at 9:47 p.m. My office tomorrow, 10:00 a.m. Bring coffee. We're building the kill shot. I showed up at 9:30 with 2 large coffees and a box of donuts that felt appropriate for planning someone's legal destruction. Lydia's conference room had a whiteboard covering an entire wall, already half filled with dates, names, and colored arrows connecting them like a conspiracy map. You brought donuts? She said, grabbing a glazed one. I like you more now. What's all this? She tapped the board. This is how we turn your property dispute into a criminal referral. She circled Preston's name. The email was the grenade. Now we bring the artillery. She'd spent the previous evening with her paralegal tracking every Whitmore project from the past decade. There were 7, all in Colorado mountain towns, all following the same pattern. Find land with unclear title or elderly owners. File aggressive claims, build fast, sell faster, then let insurers clean up the mess. They're not developers, Lydia said. They're land pirates with LLCs, Lydia said flatly. But here's what made your case different. You have documentation. Your grandfather's meticulous records going back to 1971. Every timber sale, every fence repair, every property tax payment is logged in those tobacco-scented ledgers. You've got your own receipts, survey maps, photos with GPS timestamps. Most of their victims were elderly, poor, or didn't keep records. She leaned forward. You can prove everything. Lydia grabbed a yellow legal pad. Here's the strategy. Phase 1, discovery. We depose Preston, Cassandra, their title company, their lender, and every contractor who ever pulled a permit. Someone always cracks, usually the title company. They never want to lose their license. I remembered how my divorce lawyer once described depositions, sitting in a room under oath while a stenographer types every word. People think they can lie, but attorneys like Lydia can ask the same question 17 different ways until you trip yourself up. It's like fishing with dynamite. Phase 2, she continued, we file an amended complaint adding RICO charges. RICO? I asked. Like the mafia? Exactly. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. If we prove they've run a pattern of fraud across multiple projects, and we can, it goes federal. Federal means treble damages. She scribbled some numbers on the pad. That's what they're facing if they lose. My mouth went dry. Can they even pay that? No, Lydia said, smiling faintly. Which is why they'll settle. But here's the best part. Preston and Cassandra personally guaranteed the construction loans. If Whitmore Development goes bankrupt, the banks will come after their personal assets, houses, cars, bank accounts, everything. She looked almost delighted. I could see it in her eyes, the quiet satisfaction of justice done right. What do you need me to do? I asked. 3 things. First, I need you to document every visit you made to that property. Dates, times, what you saw, and who you spoke to. Include Deputy Torres, that code officer Rick Polson, anyone who witnessed their harassment. I pulled out my phone. I've been keeping a log since September. Good, she said, nodding. Second, we need allies, anyone hurt by the Whitmores. Former employees, neighbors, unpaid contractors. Give me a list. I thought of what Rick Polson once said. I've inspected 6 Whitmore projects, and every single one had complaints from nearby landowners. I know where to start, I said. Third, Lydia leaned closer. This goes public, but not on Facebook. That's Cassandra's playground. We're talking local news. I know an investigative reporter at Channel 9 in Denver, Patricia Hughes. She's exposed corporate fraud before. Won 2 Emmys doing it. She'll want this story. You want me on TV? I asked. I want us on TV. You, me, and every family who bought in Ridgeline Heights thinking they were getting the American dream. Because here's the truth, Dakota. Those 96 families aren't the enemy. They're victims just like you. When this is over, they'll own their homes free and clear, and Cassandra will be left with nothing but legal bills. She handed me a folder. Here's the deposition schedule. Preston goes first next Thursday. Cassandra's the week after. I want you present for both. They need to see your face when they tell the truth. I opened the folder, dates, locations, and Lydia's handwritten questions. It read like a weapon, built for precision. When this is over, I asked, how much will I owe you? Less than you think, she said. When we win, the court awards attorney's fees. The Whitmores will pay my $60,000 bill. That's the best part of fraud cases, the guilty pay for everything. I left her office at noon with a plan, a purpose, and for the first time since August, a sense that justice wasn't just a word people used instead of revenge. It was something you built carefully, methodically, with receipts. Preston Whitmore's deposition was set for January 18th at 9 a.m., inside a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor of a Denver office tower. Through the windows, the Rockies glowed white with snow, silent witnesses to what was about to unfold. Preston arrived in a charcoal suit, flanked by his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane Kelso, the kind who probably billed $800 an hour. He didn't look at me, not once. The court reporter, a small woman with a clicking stenograph machine, swore him in. Lydia started gently. State your name, address, and occupation. Preston's voice was flat and practiced, like he'd done this before. Mr. Whitmore, do you recognize this email? She asked, sliding a printed copy across the table, the February 18th smoking gun. He looked at it briefly. I do. Did you write it? Yes. So you knew in February 2022 that Dakota Flint was the legal owner of the Old Mill Road property? Diane leaned forward. Don't answer that, Lydia smiled. The judge granted a discovery order. He has to. Preston shifted in his seat. I knew someone named Flint was listed in county records, but our title company told us the property was effectively abandoned. Which title company? Lydia asked. Rocky Mountain Title Group? Preston's jaw tightened. She wrote something down. He knew what was coming. Next, she'd depose the title company, and they'd either confirm his lie or throw him under the bus to protect their license. She pressed on. 50 more questions, each one closing the trap. By 11 a.m., Preston was sweating through his shirt. By noon, he'd contradicted himself 4 times. When Lydia finally said, "No further questions," he bolted from the room. Diane stayed behind, her tone calm, but edged with respect. Your client should settle, she said quietly. Your client should have thought of that before committing fraud, Lydia replied. Name a number. 10 million, Lydia said. Plus, he resigns from every corporate board, dissolves Ridgeline Capital, and personally funds the transfer of all 96 homes to their rightful owners at cost, with a written apology. Diane gave a bitter laugh. He'll never agree to that. Then we'll see him at trial, Lydia said. And I'll bring Channel 9 with me. 2 days later, the escalation I'd been dreading came. My phone rang, my son Tyler calling from Fort Collins. He was 23, working as a line cook while finishing culinary school. His voice shook. Dad, someone came to the restaurant. My stomach dropped. What happened? This guy in a suit said he was a private investigator looking into you. He asked my manager if I was reliable, if you'd ever been violent or had any incidents he should know about. My manager pulled me aside afterward and asked if there's something I need to tell him. I could lose my job. I felt a cold rush of anger. What was the investigator's name? He gave me a card. Thomas Brennan, Apex Investigations, Tyler said. I wrote it down. Listen to me, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. Don't talk to him again. If he comes back, tell him to contact my attorney. I'll handle this. After we hung up, I called Lydia. It went to voicemail, and I left a message that probably sounded half panicked. She called back at 8 p.m., I know, she said immediately. They hired a private investigator to dig up dirt. Classic intimidation tactic. He went to my son's workplace, I said. He's trying to get Tyler fired. That's witness tampering. Lydia's voice turned cold and sharp. Which is a felony. Forward me a photo of that business card. I'm filing an emergency motion in the morning. But the pressure didn't stop there. On January 23rd, I got an email from the IRS, notice of audit. They were reviewing my past 3 years of tax returns due to irregularities reported by a third party. There were no irregularities. I was a W-2 employee with the simplest taxes possible. It was pure harassment. I forwarded the email to Lydia. She called right away. They're panicking, she said. This is what happens when wealthy people feel cornered. They start burning bridges, hoping money will make their problems disappear. It's working, I said quietly. I can't afford an IRS audit on top of everything else. You won't have to, she replied. The IRS complaint is anonymous, but we can subpoena Apex Investigations' client list. If the Whitmores filed a false report, that's another felony. Dakota, listen, they're making mistakes. Desperate people always do. She was right. By January 25th, those mistakes got worse. Someone leaked the Ridgeline Heights sales contracts to a Boulder real estate blog. 96 contracts, showing buyers had paid between $450,000 and $530,000 for homes built on disputed land. The headline read, "Luxury developer sold homes on stolen property. Buyers may lose everything." My phone exploded within an hour. Dozens of emails. Homeowners terrified. One call stood out. A woman named Sarah Chen crying. "Mr. Flint, please, I used my entire life savings for the down payment on house number 67. Now my title company says they won't cover us because of the fraud claims." Her voice broke. "I have 2 kids. We moved here from California. This was supposed to be our forever home. I didn't know what to say. Sarah, I'm not trying to take your house. I'm trying to stop the people who stole from both of us." "But what happens if you win?" she asked through tears. "Do we get evicted?" "No," I said quickly. "You'll own your home. The developer will pay for it." I paused, realizing I didn't have a plan if they couldn't. That night, Lydia called. "Channel 9 wants to interview you. Patricia Hughes, the investigative reporter I mentioned, she's doing a segment on predatory land developers. It airs February 2nd, a week before trial." "What do I say?" "The truth," Lydia said. "That you're fighting for your grandfather's legacy. That you're not the villain here. The Whitmores are. And that every family in Ridgeline Heights deserves to keep their home." I thought about Sarah Chen's voice breaking on the phone. "Set it up," I said. The Channel 9 interview was scheduled for January 30th at my house. Patricia Hughes arrived at 2 p.m. with a cameraman named Steve and enough lighting gear to film a Hollywood movie. Patricia was in her mid-40s, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a blazer that said, "Professional but not afraid to dig through dirt for a story." She shook my hand firmly. "Mr. Flint," she said, "I've been covering real estate fraud for 12 years. Your case is the most blatant I've ever seen." We set up in my living room, freshly cleaned after a morning of shoving laundry into closets. Steve adjusted lights while Patricia reviewed her notes. "I'll ask about your grandfather, the property, and what you discovered. Just talk to me, not the camera. We'll handle edits later." The interview lasted an hour and a half. I told her everything. Grandpa's ledgers, Cassandra's arrogance, the Facebook smear campaign, Preston's email, and the families trapped in between. Patricia's questions were tough but fair. She made me feel like I was confiding in a friend, not giving a TV interview. When we finished, she turned off the camera. "Off the record," she said. I reached out to Cassandra Whitmore for comment. "She threatened to sue me if we air this. Or will you still run it?" I asked. Patricia smiled. "Absolutely. Threats mean I'm close to the truth." The segment aired on February 2nd at 6 p.m. I watched it alone in my living room, a beer untouched beside me. Patricia's voice narrated, "He inherited the American dream, 47 acres of Colorado forest. But when Dakota Flint returned after 3 years, he found a nightmare instead." The broadcast showed aerial footage of Ridgeline Heights, then my interview, spliced with shots of Grandpa's deed, tax receipts, and Preston's incriminating email. Patricia revealed county records showing the Whitmores had fast-tracked permits by donating $50,000 to a commissioner's re-election fund. The piece ended with me saying, "I'm not trying to hurt the families who bought these homes. They're victims too. But if we let people like the Whitmores get away with this, what's the point of property rights? What's the point of laws?" Before the segment even ended, my phone blew up again. Emma called, crying, this time from Pride. Marcus texted, "You just became a folk hero." Even my boss, Martin, emailed, "Come back Monday. We're proud to have you." But the message that mattered most came at 7:15 p.m. from a blocked number. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I forwarded it to Lydia immediately. She called back within a minute. "Don't go anywhere alone," she said. "Change your routines. Keep your doors locked." "You think they'd actually—" "I think," she interrupted, "they're staring down 10 years in federal prison and total financial ruin. People do reckless things when they're desperate, and she had every reason to be afraid." February 4th. 2 days after the broadcast, I came home from the grocery store and froze. My front door was open. I was sure I'd locked it. My heart pounded as I stood on the porch and called 911. Deputy Torres arrived first, this time with backup. They cleared the house room by room. Nothing was missing, but someone had definitely been inside. On the kitchen table sat a single sheet of paper. 5 words printed in bold black letters. Drop it or lose everything. Torres bagged it as evidence. We'll check for fingerprints, he said, but if they're smart, they wore gloves. This was the Whitmores, I said. They broke into my house. Can you prove that, he asked. I couldn't. 2 hours later, my neighbor Carol knocked on my door. 70 years old, a retired librarian, and sharp as ever. She noticed everything. Dakota, she said, I saw a black Audi SUV parked across the street yesterday around noon. A man in a suit got out, walked up your driveway, and came back 10 minutes later. Thought he was a salesman. Didn't see his face, but I wrote down the plate number, seemed off. She handed me a sticky note. Colorado plate KLM 4892. I gave it to Torres. He ran it. The car was registered to Apex Investigations, Thomas Brennan's company. That's the private investigator who harassed my son, I told him. Torres frowned. Breaking and entering is a felony, but proving he did it without video will be tough. You might want to stay somewhere else until this is over. That night, I slept on Emma's couch in Fort Collins. My phone charging beside me, a baseball bat leaning against the wall. February 6th, 3 days before trial. Lydia called. The title company flipped, she said. Rocky Mountain Titles Cooperating. They admitted they knew the adverse possession claim was bogus, but approved it anyway after Preston paid them $45,000 under the table. They're giving us everything, emails, payment records, phone calls. So we have them? I asked. We have them, she said. And Cassandra knows it too. Her lawyer called this morning begging for a settlement. What did you say? I said we'll see them in court. Her voice was steady, but the silence that followed felt heavy. 3 more days, she added. Stay safe, stay quiet, and get ready to watch everything burn. That night, I stood by Emma's window, watching snow fall over Fort Collins. Somewhere out there, Cassandra and Preston were planning their last move. I just hoped I'd see it coming. February 9th, trial day. I put on the same suit I'd worn to the first hearing, still tight at the shoulders, and drove to Boulder. Emma rode shotgun. She refused to let me face it alone. Tyler wanted to come too, but he couldn't risk missing work again after what the PI had done. The courthouse parking lot was chaos. 2 news vans, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions I ignored. Lydia had been clear. No statements before trial. Inside courtroom 3C, it was standing room only. 40 of the 96 families from Ridgeline Heights had shown up. I spotted Sarah Chen. She'd called me crying months ago about her forever home. She looked at me with something between hope and fear. Cassandra and Preston sat at the defense table with their attorneys, 4 of them, reinforcements. Cassandra wore a cream suit worth more than my truck, her face perfectly calm, except for the tremor in her hands when she reached for her water. Judge Ramirez entered. Before we begin, she said, scanning the crowd, this is a court of law, not a spectacle. Any disruption and you'll be removed. Understood? A low murmur of agreement swept the room. Ms. Chen, the judge said. Opening statement. Lydia stood. The room went silent. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice carried like thunder. Your Honor, this case is about theft. Not the kind done in alleys with masks, but the kind done in boardrooms with forged documents and greed. She walked toward the bench. My client, Dakota Flint, inherited 47 acres from his grandfather, a man who bought it with cash in 1971 and cared for it for nearly 50 years. When Mr. Flint couldn't visit for 3 years due to work and family obligations, the defendant saw an opportunity. She held up a poster-sized copy of Preston's email. This email proves they knew exactly what they were doing. They built on land that wasn't theirs, assuming most people wouldn't fight back. Lydia paused, her gaze cutting through the silence. They made one mistake. They picked the wrong man. She turned toward Cassandra and Preston. The defendants committed fraud. They broke into his home. They harassed his family. They tried to destroy his life because he refused to give up what was rightfully his. Then she faced the judge again. We're not asking for mercy. We're asking for justice, and we have the proof. She sat down. My lungs finally remembered how to breathe. The defense tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that the title company made an honest error. But Judge Ramirez wasn't buying it. I could see it in her eyes. The trial lasted 7 hours. Lydia called the title company rep who admitted taking a bribe. The code enforcement officer testified about the false complaints. Deputy Torres described the harassment campaign. Even my grandfather's old ledgers were entered into evidence, faded, tobacco-scented pages proving continuous ownership for 50 years. When Preston took the stand, Lydia dismantled him in 40 minutes. Every answer trapped him deeper. By the end, he was contradicting himself, sweating, looking to his lawyer for rescue that never came. Cassandra refused to testify. Fifth Amendment. Her lawyers knew better. At 4:47 p.m., Judge Ramirez said she'd issue her ruling within 24 hours. Outside, the homeowners surrounded me. Sarah Chen grabbed my arm. "What happens to us if you win? Do we lose our homes?" I looked at Lydia. She nodded. "No," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You keep your homes. Every single one of you. The Whitmores committed fraud, not you. You'll own your houses free and clear." For a moment, silence. Then one person started clapping. Then another. Within seconds, the courthouse hallway erupted in applause. Cassandra walked past, flanked by her lawyers, eyes burning with hate. Outside, Patricia Hughes from Channel 9 called out, "Mr. Flint, how are you feeling?" I looked at the cameras, at Emma beside me, at the snow-capped Rockies in the distance. "Like my grandfather's watching," I said, "and he's proud." That clip went viral overnight. 3 million views in 12 hours. The next morning, Judge Ramirez released her ruling. "We won everything." Her statement said it all. The defendants engaged in a calculated scheme to defraud Dakota Flint through false claims, bribery, and deceit. Such conduct is reprehensible and will not be tolerated by this court. The judgment gave me full title to all 47 acres, including the 96 houses, and awarded $4.2 million in damages, plus legal fees. It also referred the case for criminal prosecution. Cassandra and Preston were finished. Their company dissolved within a week. Their assets, cars, jewelry, vacation homes, were auctioned to pay debts. Preston was indicted. Cassandra took a plea deal. 3 years probation, $500,000 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from real estate. But victory brought a new problem: what to do with the 96 families living on my land. Legally, I could have evicted them and sold the homes myself for millions. That's what most people expected. Instead, I called a town hall meeting on March 15th. Every family showed up, crowding the unfinished clubhouse Cassandra had promised but never built. These weren't villains, they were teachers, nurses, electricians, people who'd saved for years to buy their piece of the dream. And I knew exactly what I was going to tell them. I stood at the front of the room with Lydia beside me. "I know you're scared," I began. "You bought your homes in good faith. You did nothing wrong, and I'm not here to punish anyone for someone else's crime." The room was so quiet you could hear the snow melting on the roof. "Here's what I'm proposing," I continued. "I'm transferring ownership of all 96 homes to the Ridgeline Heights Community Trust, a non-profit we're establishing today. Each family will own their home through the trust at the same price you originally paid. No mortgages, no interest. Just what you've already invested. If you've already paid your full amount, you owe nothing more. If you still have payments left, you'll finish them directly to the trust at 0 interest." Someone gasped. Sarah Chen started crying. "The trust will use those funds to maintain the roads, cover property taxes, and create a scholarship fund for the kids in this community," I said. My grandfather believed land wasn't about profit. It was about legacy. And this is his legacy. The applause started soft, then grew into thunder. People were hugging, crying, shouting thank yous across the room. An elderly man, Mr. Rodriguez, walked up and gripped my hand so tight I thought my shoulder might pop. "You're a good man," he said. "Your grandfather raised you right." The William Flint Memorial Scholarship launched that September. $10,000 a year for a Colorado student studying engineering, forestry, or environmental science. Emma helped me set it up. She said Grandpa would have loved knowing his old ledgers full of timber sale records were now helping fund someone's education. I kept 5 acres for myself at the north end of the property, the part with the old growth pines Grandpa refused to cut. I built a small cabin there, 2 bedrooms. Nothing fancy. I sold my house in town and moved in last October. Now I wake up every morning to the smell of pine and coffee, watch deer graze outside my window. Tyler visits on weekends. Emma brings her boyfriend and a law student, of course. Even Jennifer, my ex-wife, came by once with her new husband. Said she was proud of me. It felt strange, but good. Patricia Hughes did a follow-up story in December. From property theft to community triumph, how one man turned injustice into justice. It won her 3rd Emmy. Last week, Sarah Chen's daughter gave me a drawing, a crayon house with a stick figure labeled Mr. Dakota, holding a giant deed. It's on my fridge now, held up by a magnet shaped like Colorado. Sometimes I think about Grandpa's note. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. He was right. But what's mine isn't just land or money. It's knowing 96 families sleep safely tonight because I didn't quit. It's a scholarship that'll help some kid who reminds me of myself. Broke, stubborn, just trying to build something that lasts. That's justice. The real kind. The kind that heals. So let me ask you, have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, a property dispute, or someone who thought they could steamroll you just because they had money and you didn't? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a library of how regular people beat corrupt systems. And if this story mattered to you, if it reminded you that good people can still win, hit that subscribe button. I've got more stories like this. Stories about the little guy outsmarting the machine. Stories with proof. Next week, City Council denied my business permit, so I found the bylaw that made me untouchable. See you then. And remember, keep your receipts, all of them.